Potchim bebaracha. Well, let us open with a blessing. Well, Befrat, like I said before, I didn't record this, so I'm just saying over a little bit what I said before. These are speeches that were given by the Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1991, 1992, shortly before he had a stroke, which rendered him unable to speak. So these are the directions for us, our generation, to bring Moshiach and the future redemption. And the Rebbe is the Moshiach, the leaders of Chabad of every generation. They are the Moshiach of every generation. If you read in the Rambam, the Maimonides, Moshiach is going to be a person just like King David. And he's going to make all the Jews return back to their Jewish senses, their Jewish identity, and do Torah, do the commandments, which is what every Jew wants to do in the deep down anyway, just to awaken this. And eventually, when all the Jews then return to godliness, and the Torah, which could be just in one instant, then the temple will come down, which that also could be in one instant from heaven. Okay, poskim b'bracha. Let us open with a blessing, says the Rebbe. This is how he opened up his speech. It was given on Shabbat, but the Hasidim remembered it, and after Shabbat, they sat together and they went over it and wrote it down and gave it into the Rebbe, and the Rebbe would okay it or he would correct it, whatever. Especially when we're in the beginning of this month of Adar, right? Monday night is going to be the first day of Adar. Monday night. When there is the commandment, when it comes in the month of Adar, you should increase in happiness. Think about happy things. Be happy. Because it's in this month it's easier to be happy. Because it says that the mazel of the Jewish people, the blessing that the Jewish people get on this month is greater. Mazel of Israel, the mazel of the Jewish people is greater. But Mela, so it's understood, Shabbat Israel, that the Jewish people, they get special blessings on this month, even more. It says in the Gemara, just like when Av comes in, you are less happy. Adar, when it comes in the month of Adar, Marbin b'simcha. It's in the Gemara in Tainit. Just like in the month of Av, you make less. It's the month of Av is when the two temples were destroyed and other terrible things happened. So it's sort of a sad month. The same way that when Av comes in, that you're a little less happy. I mean, you always have to be happy, but you're a little less happy. Adar, also when Adar comes in, you have to be more happy. Therefore, Bar Yisrael, a Jewish person, it says the Islay Dina, that has a court case. Bahari Nachri, with a non-Jew, Yishtamid Menei Ba'av, you should try not to bring this court case to trial in the month of Av, the Raya Mazel, because it's not good luck. Lameitze Nafshi Ba'adar, and you should try to make it in the month of Adar, the Bari Mazli, that it is healthy Mazli. This is Aramaic, because that's the language of the Talmud. Well, at first glance, we'll talk on Ashva, but Gemara. Why doesn't the Talmud just say when Adar comes in, be happy? Why does it have to say in this roundabout way? Just like when the month of Av comes in, we are less happy. So also when Adar comes in, we are more happy. Why? Just say be happy in Adar. This makes it impairs, it puts a blemish on the joy of the month of Adar. What do you have to mention, right? It's like your two children get married, and you go to grandma, and you say, hey, remember how sad you were when grandpa died? Well, that's how happy you have to be now. What type of thing is to say that? Who would say a thing like that, right? Remember how you were crying when grandpa died, you feel terrible? Well, that's how happy you should be now. Just say, be happy the children are getting married. What are you bringing up negative things for? The same thing also here. It says in the Talmud, what? Just like we're less happy in the month of Av, you have to be more happy in the month of Adar. Why mention Av being less? Adar, exactly the opposite. The rabbis usually, the language of the rabbis, kashem, just like when Av comes in, you are less happy. Also, when Adar comes in, you are more happy. This comes to teach us that the lessening of joy in the month of Av should be on the same topic as the joy in the month of Adar. Like it says, kashem, just like. That the reason and the intention why we are less happy in the month of Av is because we have to take that same thing and transform it from darkness to light and from bitterness to sweetness. Zenifal, how does this happen? By means of increasing joy. For Bari Mausli, there's good luck in the month of Adar. Shemahapech, that this transforms also the making less happiness when there's bad luck of the month of Av. In other words, somehow or other, we're mentioning it together because the month of Adar is not just you're being happy. You're transforming the happiness of Av. You're taking the reason, the misery. You're taking the misery of the month of Av, the reason for that misery, and you're transforming that same reason to be happy. And therefore it's understood that by means of this, we add even more joy in the month of Adar, in addition to the joy on its own. This joy that you're taking the things which were bad, that caused us to have less happiness, but often shenasa, that it makes matamim, like it makes good tasting food from bitter food. Lashon rabim, machalim, it says not just bitter, it says making sweet food from bitter food, you're making sweet foods. These are the sweet and good tasting foods, cuisine. You're taking a bitter situation of the month of Av and you're putting salt, spices on it, that suddenly that very bitterness becomes happy. You take things which are bitter or what is it? The sharp. Chamutzim. Charifim means they're bitter, they're rak she'em metuvelim, but what you do is you put spices on them and you make it so that it tastes really, really good, transforming the month of Av into sweetness. According to this, this will be sweetened, the commandment to be more happy is brought in tiny. Why is this thing of being more happy in the month of Av, why is it brought in the tractate which talks about fasts and being unhappy? This is a sugya, this is a tractate of the Talmud which talks about bad things, the destruction of the temple, when there's no rain, etc. Including the commandment that you're not supposed to be as happy in the month of Av. By means of this, we can understand even more. Now we can understand the word blessing, this blessing, the blessing in everything, also transforming everything which is bad to joy. Until the main blessing, a blessing which is very relevant to us now, the blessing of the future true redemption by means of Moshiach Tzidkenu. Then there'll be complete happiness. It says, then our mouths will be filled with joy. This will be the really lucky month of the Jewish people. Shleim is the completion of transforming darkness to light and bitterness to sweetness. So let's say in the wedding, you go to your grandmother and you say, you should remember how sad you were when grandpa died. Well, that's how happy you should be now, because now I just received a message from God. As soon as the wedding occurs, grandpa is going to come back to life. And you and him are going to be young again and healthy. Oh, this is a wonderful thing. There's never been such a thing like this. Maybe your grandma will think, are you fooling me? What type of a terrible thing to say is this? If you're fooling me, it's awful. You're going to transform that bitterness to sweetness when all of a sudden it comes back and grandpa's back there and he's young and he's handsome and grandmother and they're all healthy. Oh, everybody's happy. The happiness was beyond belief. Well, that's exactly what the Rebbe is promising us now. That in the month of Adar, that the third temple is going to bring back to life all of the bad things. It'll transform all the bad things, all the pain, the trouble, the difficulties of the Jewish people. Everything will be brand new again. Somehow or other, the whole thing will be worthwhile. I mean, the example that I gave is only a very small, weak example of the joy that's going to be when the temple, how it's going to be with the temple, I have absolutely no idea. There's going to be some sort of a joy that's not just going to make us forget about all the bad things. It'll make us happy that all those bad things happened. How that's going to be, I don't know. We'll be happy that there was a Holocaust. But somehow or other, we'll realize that it's the beginning of this month of Adar. It begins, and usually in this week, which is Parshas Truma, which Parshas Truma talks about the building of the tabernacle. Like it's known that the holidays of the year, the occurrences of the year, they have a connection to the Torah portion that they occur. So now we have to understand what is the connection between this month of Adar. It says when Adar comes in, we have to be happy, and it's a good luck month of the Jewish people to this Torah portion, which is Truma. Okay, first of all, in addition to the connection of the month of Adar in general, it also has to have a connection to the novelty of Adar in this year, says the Rebbe. This year, the Rebbe, this was Tav Shin Nun Beit, exactly 30 years ago, right? What's so unusual about that year? First of all, it's the same thing as this year, because this year is what's called a pregnant year. It has 13 months in it. So which month is added? It has 2 months of Adar, the first Adar and the second Adar. So now we're reading Parsha Truma. This is in the first Adar. In some ways, the first Adar is the main one. The Rebbe explained it in the previous Torah portion. The second Adar is the one that's being added. Number 2, the 2 days of this month of Adar, it's going to be this year, right? And they're going to be Tuesday and Wednesday of the month. That's the same thing back then. It was exactly the same thing as this year. Tuesday and Wednesday, those are the 2 days of Rosh Chodesh, right? Tuesday is what's called, it's called the 30th day of Shvat, and Wednesday is going to be the first day of the first Adar. Okay, now we can understand, first of all, what's going on in this Torah portion. The beginning of our Torah portion, God says, Vayikhu li truma. God says to Moses, speak to the Jewish people, and they should all take truma. They should all take an offering, donations. Zota truma sher tikhu meitam. This is the donations that should be taken from them: gold, silver, and copper, etc. It's known the question. What's the question? Why does it begin with gold? First of all, there's a general question that the Dvarim hayu tzrichim kasei b'seder mirakal hakaved. It should have been written to take the easy things first, and then afterwards take the more severe things, the more expensive. Right? Also, the Egyptians. It's probably the Egyptians had the Jews when they left Egypt, so they took all the treasures of Egypt, and they also took and the sea. It says all the soldiers that the Egyptian soldiers ran after the Jews, they all drowned, and all the riches washed up on the side, on the shores where the Jews came out. So they had tremendous riches, right? The Jewish people. But the majority of the riches, that's usually the way it is that people have, right? The gold, you have less in amount. There's less gold than there is anything else. The other things, they have more, right? They have more tapestries and more silver and more. Also, there were jewels that were more expensive. Why does it start off with gold? We'll see. Why does it begin with gold? The first one that's mentioned, God says, speak to the Jewish people, tell them to bring offerings to the temple, gold, silver, and copper. Why does it start off with gold? Why not copper, silver, and gold? In addition to the general question that what things should have been written from easy to lozu avzu. Not only you should bring copper, you should also bring silver. Not only silver, you should also bring gold. Also, in our case, l'cheora matim seder zu. This is even more proper, that it should have started off with copper or silver. Why start with gold? Since the Kan Medubar is talking about the offerings in the temple, that this was an obligation on every single Jew. Kol echad lefi nidvas libo, bichuli truma me'et kol ish asher yidven libo. Simply, this was the Jewish people. There were Jewish people that had more money and the Jewish people that had less. Even though true, everybody gathered up all the money from the temple, from the Egyptians, but still there's certain people that they were more lucky, they got more gold, and people got less gold. Obviously, the people that got less gold were more. There was less gold by the Egyptians. Not everybody gave the same thing. So if so, it should have been beginning with silver or copper, that there was more, the Jewish people had more of that. More Jewish people, this was more equal to all the Jewish people, right? There were only certain people that had gold. Afterwards, they should, first of all, you should start off with the simple things that everybody had. And then after that, you say, okay, now whoever has silver should give silver. Whoever gold has gold. The main thing was, Sheshayach Be'ikra, this was only by the Jews that were rich, like we find in the offerings that were afterwards. Shekol and Yanim, except for gold, they are according to a person that brought. But Techilin, first of all, there came gold, silver, and copper. All these things were by most of the Jewish people. And all the Jewish people, Nidva Libo, the Mishkan. Afterwards, it says Techelis, Argoman, Tola Shani, Sheish Vizim, all these different weird types of cloth and tapestries. It says when the Jewish people left Egypt that the cloth and the garments were worth more than the gold and silver. Oros Elim, Adamim, these weird sort of skins of animals and tachashim. That's what it says. Kol ish asher nimtza ito. It says all the people that were found that possessed it. Because these other fine tapestries and things were only found by certain Jews, not everybody. And afterwards it says, bring the wood. This was even less, that they had this ateshitim. And the last things, shemen lamaor, the special oil, which was the first drops that came from the olives, avnei shoam, avnei milim, these precious stones that were in the breastplate and the garments of the Kohen Gadol. That only these things, only the heads of the tribes they brought. Ki liyehudim acherim loyas, because other Jews didn't have these things. So we see that not all the Jews had all of the ingredients of the temple. And it says clearly that the Nesim, that the leaders of the tribes, the 12 leaders, they were the ones that brought this Avnei Shohem, the Avnei Ananim Abayim. It says even more that the clouds brought them to the heads of the leaders. Nesim also means clouds. Avnei Shohem says that the clouds brought them to the heads of the tribes, and the heads of the tribes, they brought them to the Jewish people. So according to this, we can understand that gold should have come after silver and copper, because the least number of the Jewish people had, the more expensive the things were, the least, the smaller the number of Jews that possessed them. It says the smaller number of Jews possessed than silver and gold. Again, even though that it says that the Jewish people did have a lot of gold and silver from what says Bizas Mitzrayim and Bizas Hayom, like I said before, from the spoils of Egypt and from the spoils of the sea, like the rabbis say, in there was no Jew that didn't have 90 white mules that were filled with silver and gold of the Egyptians. But obviously we have to say that even by the Egyptians, the majority, what they had was silver and copper. There was more than that than gold. Gold is a precious metal. It's found less by people. Because whatever is more expensive, usually it's present in less amount. That's what made it expensive. So therefore, the rich people, they were different from the Jewish people themselves, right? So in other words, there was less gold, and probably the rich people, they were the ones that were the lucky ones that grabbed a hold of it. In any case, in addition to this, that the Jewish people, they certainly had more copper than gold, than silver, and they had more silver than gold. They took out everything, right? The Jews, when they left Egypt, they didn't just take the expensive stuff. Everyone took out everything. They left. It says that Egypt was emptied out. So also for the Mishkan, for the tabernacle, the Jewish people, it was the temple, the tabernacle needed more silver and copper more than gold. Like the Ramban says, look over in the Ramban, he'll explain it. How it is exactly that silver and copper were more used in the tabernacle than gold was. So it says, "Kol ish asher henif tenufas zahav lo yurabim." The people that brought gold were not as many as the people that brought silver and copper, and the amount of gold that was brought was not as great as the silver and copper. The reason for this simply is because the making of the tabernacle and its vessels, you had to have more silver and copper than you did have to have than you had to have gold. So Alpiza, according to this, the question is even greater. Why was it when God told Moses to request from the Jewish people the contributions to the tabernacle, why did it start off? Why did God say the first thing was gold? And it's not impossible to say that the Torah, it just mentioned the 13 things, or some people, according to some, it was 15 things. According to the Seder, it depends on one thing if you divide it into two or not. Zav is, maybe he's saying the most important, he took the most important first, the gold, because gold is more important than that's why it comes first. Says the Rebbe, good try, but not a good answer, because the precious stones, the Avnei Shom, Avnei Miluim, the precious stones that were on the shoulder, the shoulders and the breastplate of the Kohen, of the high priest, they were much more expensive and valuable than than gold, and they're found at the end. The Ikar Tzivah, the main of the commandment of the Mishkan to the Jewish people, this was the importance of the thing. So it can't be that God, why did God put gold first? Because gold is the most expensive. It's not so. The precious stones are more expensive. Well, maybe they needed gold more. It's not so. that copper and silver were used more. If so, why does God start the list with gold? The Rebbe is going to give a good answer. We'll see. Also, we have to understand what is the teaching to us that we can learn that gold is the first thing that God mentioned when he talked about giving to the temple. What's so important about gold? Why was gold number one? We'll find out, God willing, tomorrow. Let's just do the Yom Yom. It says, this is from last week's Torah portion. When you see a donkey of your enemy crouching under its burden, you think you won't help it? No, you must help it. The Baal Shem Tov said like this: when you see a donkey, the word chamor means donkey, but the word chamor also means your physicality, the way you react to the world, how material and physical are, namely your body, and you see that it is your enemy. What does it mean, your enemy? That your body is making you do things that your godly soul or your conscience doesn't want it to do. So what you can do, if you see that it's too much of a burden, then what? It's too much of a burden to improve yourself. Namely, God gave you Torah and the commandments, but the body is too lazy. The Torah and the commandments are like a burden for the body. A person doesn't want to use the Torah and the commandments to purify himself and refine himself. Then what? You will refrain from helping it. If you decide you don't want to use the Torah and the commandments, it's too difficult. Rather, you would decide you want to fast or you want to do other things to break the physical body. Says that's not the way to do it. The light of the Torah will not reside under self-mortification. Rather, you must aid it. You have to purify your body, refine it, think positive thoughts, work on yourself little by little to stop doing negative things and start doing good things. Don't break your body by effacement. Is a word like that. Happiness is the way to fix your personality. Stop doing bad, start doing good by positive things, by positive actions, positive speech, positive thought, and get a friend to help you also. Don't do self-mortification. Not a good idea, not the way of Judaism. Have a good day with Moshiach. Now, God willing, 3 o'clock, we're going to learn the Chumash. This week, we're learning about the building of the tabernacle.